Good day, everyone. This is Ian Alfermento, and I will be discussing to you system flow charts. System flow charts is a graphical representation of the physical relationships among key elements of a system. These elements may include organizational departments, manual activities, computer programs, hard copy accounting records, and digital records. These also describe the type of computer media being employed in the system, such as magnetic tape, magnetic disks, and terminals. The flow charting examples in the following sections illustrate techniques for representing both manual and computer-based accounting processes. We begin by documenting manual procedures. We will add computer elements to the system later. Flow charting manual activities. This is to demonstrate the flow charting of manual activities. Let's assume that an auditor needs to flow chart a sale order system to evaluate its internal controls and procedures. The auditor will begin by interviewing individuals involved in the sales order processes to determine what they do. So this information will be captured in a set of written facts similar to those below. Keep in mind that the purpose here is to demonstrate flow charting. Thus, for clarity, the system facts are intentionally simplistic. 1. A clerk in the sales department receives a hard copy customer order by mail and manually prepares 4 hard copies of a sales order. Second, the clerk sends copy 1 of the sales order the credit department for approval. The other 3 copies and the original customer order are filed temporarily pending credit approval. Third, the credit department clerk validates the customer's order against hard copy credit records kept in the credit department. The clerk signs copy 1 to signify approval and returns it to the sales clerk. Fourth, when the sales clerk receives credit approval, he or she files copy 1 and the customer order in the department. The clerk sends copy 2 to the warehouse and copy 1 or copy 3 and 4 to the shipping department. Fifth, the warehouse clerk picks the products from the shelves, records the transfer in the hard copy stock records, and sends the products and copy 2 to the shipping department. 6. The shipping department receives copy 2 and the goods from the warehouse, attaches cover or copy 2 as a packing slip, and ships the good to the customer. Finally, the clerk files copy 3 and 4 in the shipping department. So based on these facts, the auditor can create a flow chart of this partial system. It is important to note that flow charting is as much an art form as it is a technical skill, giving the flowchart author a great deal of license. Nevertheless, the primary objective should be to provide an ambiguous description of the system. So with this in mind, certain rules and conventions need to be observed. 1. The flowchart should be labeled to clearly identify the system that it represents. 2. The correct symbols should be used to represent the various entities in the system. 3. All symbols on the flowchart should be labeled. 4th, lines should have arrowheads to clearly show the process flow and sequence of events. 5th, if complex processes needs additional explanation for clarity, a text description should be included in the flowchart or in an attached document referenced by the flowchart. Lay out the physical areas of activities. Remember that a flowchart reflects the system or the physical system, which is represented as vertical columns of events and actions separated by lines of demarcation. Generally, each of these areas' activity is a separate column with a heading. From these system facts, we see that there are four distinct areas of activity, which are sales department, credit department, warehouse, and shipping department. The first step in preparing the flowchart is to lay out these areas of activity and label each of them. This step is illustrated in figure 6.6. Next, transcribe the written facts into visual format. At this point, we are ready to start visually representing the system facts. The symbols used for this purpose will be selected from the set represented in figure 6.17. We begin with the first stated fact. So given na diha ang atong figure. First, a clerk in the sales department receives a hard copy customer order by mail and manually prepares 4 hard copies of a sales order. So figure 6.8 illustrate how this fact could be represented. The customer is the source of the order, but is not part of the system. The oval object is typically used to convey a data source or destination that is separate from the system being flowcharted. The document symbol entering the sales department signifies the hard copy customer order and is labeled accordingly. The bucket-shaped symbol represents a manual process. In this case, the clerk in the sales department prepares 4 copies of the sales order. Notice that the clerk's task, not the clerk, is depicted. The arrows between the objects shows the direction of flow and the sequence of events. By transcribing each fact in this way, we systematically construct a flowchart. See how the second and third facts restated below add to the flowchart in figure 6.19. So given diha. Second, the clerks send copy 1 of the sales order to the credit department for approval. The other 3 copies and the original customer order are filed temporarily pending credit approval. Third, the credit department clerk validates the customer's order against hard copy credit records kept in the credit department. The clerk signs copy 1 to signify approval and returns it to the sales clerk. So 2 new symbols are introduced in this figure. First, the upside down triangle symbol represents the temporary file mentioned in fact 2. This is a physical file of paper documents such as a drawer in a filing cabinet or desk. Such files are typically arranged according to a specified order. To signify the filing system used, the file symbol will usually contain an N for numeric invoice number, C for chronological date, or A for alphabetical order customer name. Secondly, the parallelogram shape represents the credit records mentioned in fact 3. This symbol is used to depict many types of hard copy accounting records such as journals, subsidiary ledgers, general ledgers, and shipping logs. Having laid these foundations, let's now complete the flowchart by depicting the remaining facts. So fourth, when the sales clerk receives credit approval, he or she files copy 1 and the customer order in the department. The clerk sends copy 2 to the warehouse and copy 3 and 4 to the shipping department. Fifth, the warehouse clerk picks the product from the shelves, records the transfer in the hard copy stock records, and sends the products and copy 2 to the shipping department. Sixth, the shipping department receives copy 2 and the goods from the warehouse attaches copy 2 as a packing slip and ships to the goods to customer. Finally, the clerk files copy 3 and 4 in the shipping department. The completed flowcharts is presented in figure 6.20. So notice the circular symbol labeled A. This is an on-page connector used to replace flow lines that otherwise would cause excessive clutter on the page. In this instance, the connector replaces the lines that signify the movement of copy 3 and 4 from the sales department to the shipping department. Lines should be used whenever possible to promote clarity. Restricted use of connectors, however, can improve the readability of the flowchart. Notice also that the physical products or goods mentioned in facts 4 and 5 are not shown on the flowchart. The document copy 2 that accompanies and controls the goods, however, is shown. Typically, a system flowchart shows only the flow of documents, not physical assets. Finally, for visual clarity, system flowcharts show the processing of a single transaction only. You should keep in mind, however, that transactions usually pass through manual procedures in batches or groups. Before exploring documentation techniques further, we need to examine some important issues related to batch processing. So batch processing permits the efficient management of a large volume of transactions. A batch is a group of similar transactions such as sales orders that are accumulated over time and then processed together. Batch processing offers two general advantages. First, organizations improve operational efficiency by grouping together large numbers of transactions into batches and processing them as a unit of work rather than processing each event separately. Second, batch processing provides control over the transaction process. The accuracy of the process is established by periodically reconciling the batch against the control figures. So both of these advantages have implication for designing batch systems. Flowcharting computer process. We now examine flowcharting techniques to represent a system that employs both manual and computer processes. The symbol set used to construct this system flowchart will come from both figure 6.7 and figure 6.21. Again, our example is based on a sales order system with the following facts. 1. A clerk in the sales department receives a customer order by mail and enters the information into a computer terminal that is networked to a centralized computer program in the computer operations department. The original customer order is filed in the sales department. Then facts 2, 3, and 4 relate to activities that occur in the computer operations department. 2. A computer program edits the transactions, checks the customer's credit by referencing credit history file, and produces a transaction file of the sales order or orders. 3. The sales order transaction file is then processed by an update program that posts the transaction to corresponding records in AR and inventory files. 4th, finally the update program produces 3 hard copies of the sales order. Copy 1 is sent to the warehouse, and copies 2 and 3 are sent to the shipping department. 5th, on receipt of copy 1, the warehouse clerk picks the products from the shelves using copy 1, and the warehouse personnel computer The clerk records the inventory transfer in the digital stock records that are kept on the PC. Next, the clerk sends the physical inventory and copy 1 to shipping department. 6. The shipping department receives copy 1 and the goods from the warehouse. The clerk reconciles the goods with copies 1, 2, and 3 and attaches copy 1 as a packing slip. Next, the clerk ships the goods with copy 1 and copy 1 attached to the customer. Finally, the clerk records the shipment in the hard copy shipping log and files copies 2 and 3 in the shipping department. We have laid out the physical areas of activity. The flow charting process begins by creating a template that depicts the areas of activities similar to the one shown in figure 6.6. The only differences in the case are that this system has a computer operations department but does not have a credit department. Transcribe the written facts into visual format. As with the manual system example, the next step is to systematically transcribe the written facts into visual objects. Figure 6.22 illustrates facts 6.2 or facts 1, 2, and 3 translate visually. So in the figure, the customer order, and file symbols in the flowchart are the same as in the previous example. The sales clerk activity, however, is now automated and the manual process symbol has been replaced with a computer terminal symbol. Also, because this is a data input operation, the arrowhead on the flowchart line points in the direction of the edit and credit check programs of the terminal was also used to receive output. The facts do not specify such an operation. Arrowheads would be on both ends of the line. Recall that the emphasis in flowcharting is on the physical system. For example, the terminal used by the sales clerk to enter customer orders is physically located in the sales department, but the programs that process the transaction and the files that it uses and updates are stored in a separate computer operations department. Notice how the flow lines points from the credit history file to the edit program. This indicates that file is read but not changed or updated by the program. In contrast, the interactions between the update programs and the AR and inventory files are in the opposite direction. The relevant records in these files have been changed to reflect the transactions. The logic of a file update is explained later in the chapter. Let's now translate the remaining facts into visual symbols. So fact 4 states that the update program produces 3 hard copy documents in the computer operations department, which are then distributed to the warehouse and shipping departments. So the translation of this fact is illustrated in figure 6.23. So fact 5 states that the warehouse clerk updates the stock records in the department PC and then sends the physical inventory and copy 1 to the shipping department. Notice on the figure 6.23 how this computer activity is represented. The warehouse PC is a standalone computer system that is not networked into the computer operations department like the terminal in the sales department. The PC, the stock record updates program, and the stock records themselves are all physically located in the warehouse. As with manual procedures,